Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Alden Kroll, and I'm a designer at Valve working on Steam.
My name is Adil Sardar, and I'm an engineer that also works on Steam.
In this session, we're going to go through some of the tools that you can make use of on Steam when communicating with your fans. We heard in earlier sessions today from game developers that were talking about some of the different channels and methods and reasons why they communicate and how they communicate. In this session in particular, we're going to focus on just the set of Steam tools that you can make use of that are built into Steam and help surface your communication to fans as they're going to play games, as they're going to buy games, as they're deciding how to spend their time.
Alden and I have been working on these tools with a team of folks for over 2 years. And we're really excited to get a chance to sort of dive in and speak to you guys about them. We're going to break it into 3 different parts. The first part will be the events that you create and all the places they're going to come up on Steam, whether it's the library, the store, or the community. The second part, we scoured 500,000 events that have been created since we've launched and tried to find some really interesting examples. We hope those will inspire you to create your events. And finally, we're going to roll up our sleeves and dive into the editor tool and show you how easy it is to take the idea you have and launch an event on Steam.
We're going to take a look at all the places that your events can show up throughout Steam, and we're going to start with the Steam library. Here in the Steam library, one of the things that you'll notice first is this row across the top called What's New. This is a collection of events and activities and posts from games that I have in my library. So these are games that I've played recently, or games that I have a lot of playtime in, but I haven't played recently, and a collection of other games that are across my library that just have interesting big events happening in them.
What's New does a priority where it has, for most users, way too many events to show. So it needs to decide of those events which to show to you. And as Alden was mentioning, it uses your recent and overall playtime to make those decisions. Each user will likely get a different set of events that are catered to them.
From here, players will be able to click on your event, should be able to quickly view it in context. So this gives them the ability to click through a number of these different events, see what's fresh and interesting and happening in their library, add reminders if there's upcoming events that they care about, or watch YouTube videos if there's new things that are being announced. This all kind of helps our players stay up to date with what's happening in their games and gives you a channel of communicating directly with your players when they're looking for what they want to play next. So each of these is an opportunity for you to communicate to your players, why should they play your game right now? What's going on? What's interesting? What's happening in your game that makes it feel special and alive right now?
Directly from What's New, you can click on the game's name to launch straight to its detail page. Or from the event, there's a small icon from your game.
So when you drill in and you're looking at the detail page for a game, this is where all of your posts will show up in chronological order to players. And you can see a variety of different kinds of posts that Endzone here has posted over time. Everything from major big updates to little patch notes. And you can see how accordingly they're displayed in different sizes and different visual prominence. So patch notes, we want to have available for players that care about those things and are looking at what has changed in this game, what's changed maybe since I last played it, or the history of those changes. They can find that here, but it's not necessarily big and in their face. But the major updates that you can see, those are big because they're a more substantial kind of event. You'll also notice at the top of this page, there's a big banner here. We call this the Library Spotlight. You really want to take the time to kind of customize how this is phrased. You can bake all of your words into the banner itself as just one giant image, or you can toggle an option and have Steam automatically overlay your title and description on top of this as well.
So while we're talking about the library detail page, we figure when you first create your event, there's a little amount of time where Steam has to process in the publishing side before it appears here, but there might be a longer gap, and that is due to Steam moderation. Constant feedback we've heard from our Steam customers is they don't want their library to advertise to them about different products. We have a moderation team that runs 24 hours a day, every 30 minutes, that is looking at every event that's published on Steam. Their goal is to ensure the events that surface on people's Steam library have no advertisements. There's a whole bunch of other things that we look for, and we will include this in the presentation notes for you to peruse through.
So the next area that players are going to encounter your posts will be from the Downloads panel. This is one of the most frequently clicked on areas of the Steam client. A player will see their game that they have installed, download an update, and they'll want to click through and see what changed in this game. Does it impact me? Is it an exciting new big update? Was it a few small patch notes? So it's really important that you as a developer post your patch notes. Just as you would post a major update and tell your fans about big new content that you're adding to your game, they also want to know when little things have changed. And they want to also be able to tell the difference between those two. So sometimes I see an update happen to one of my games and I can't tell if it's a big update or a little update.
And you can see that patch notes are not necessarily very long. They can be a simple title, the version, it could be a date, and a simple change log of the things you've changed.
And of course, for any of your posts, there's always a share button here that you can use or that your fans can use to share it. So one of the other big places that events show up is in the Steam store. There's a couple of different ways that you can get to this. The news drop-down under store. There's also the news button in the blue bar at the top of the store. This is a place for fans to come and see all of the interesting updates and announcements and events happening in their games, and it gives them a personalized page to view all these things. So they can use these options and controls to be able to filter out or in the different kinds of events that they want to see. If I care a lot about releases, but I don't care so much about patch notes, or I don't really want to see live streams, I can customize all of that here. You'll also notice that there's a bar at the top of this page called Coming Soon. So this is where you as a game developer can schedule an event ahead of time and surface it to your fans so that they know that this thing is coming up. They can add a reminder. They can even add it to their calendar and plan their schedules around it. So they know if there's a community tournament happening on Thursday at 6 o'clock, they could schedule that on their calendar and know that they want to be online at 6 o'clock to join that tournament. You'll also notice as you scroll down here, there's all sorts of different kinds of events mixed in. Some of them are live, some of them have YouTube videos embedded that you can play in context. And as with the library, any of these events that you click on, you can view in context, really lightweight and quickly, be able to browse through and see what's happening in that game.
Every game on Steam gets their own personalized news hub. So you can easily search for their name here, and it'll take you to this hub.
You'll notice on this news hub that there's a couple of posts mixed in here at the top from Rock, Paper, Shotgun and PC Games N. That's because I follow those news outlets within Steam. So their posts show up here in the context of Dota 2. If we were looking at Adil's feed, he wouldn't necessarily see those same news outlets because he doesn't follow the same news sources that I also follow. So let's take a look at the homepage of the Steam store. There's another prominent place that your events and updates can show up. There's a dedicated row here for recently updated. So these are games that have major updates that they've been released. And it uses a system that we have on Steam called Visibility Update Rounds. So it's a set of tokens that you can use to tell Steam that this is one of the biggest events and updates happening in your games right now and to show it on the homepage. It'll appear here to players that own your game and players that wishlist your game. It's a great opportunity to help them recognize that there's something interesting happening in your game when they're browsing around the Steam store. Just another one of the places that these events can show up and surface to your fans and potential fans. When you click through them, it'll take you to the store page. And on the store detail page for a game, as you scroll down, you'll find another section that lists your events and activities that you've posted. But then you'll also notice right below it, there's a small section that says when the game was last updated. So in this example, they have a recent patch notes that they've posted, but it's not bumping their other bigger announcements off of this page. There's a small indication there for fans that are wondering when this game was last updated, but really the big announcements and events are still the visual prominent things on this page. From here, we can flip over to the Steam Community Hub for this game. This is one of the last places that your events can also show up. So as players are browsing around your individual Steam Community Hub, you'll notice that the announcements are showing up there. And again, they can easily be clicked on to view in context on top of everything else. So this has been an exploration of all the different places that your events can show up through Steam, in the library, in the store, in the Steam community. Every time you talk to your players and post these announcements and events, there's a huge number of different places that they can show up to your players. And they'll show up more or less in some of these places depending on who your audience is, how they interact with Steam, how big they are, and their relationship with your game. Now we're going to take a closer look at some examples of the kinds of events that developers have been posting on Steam. You can think about it as starting as you lead up towards launch, where your goal is to build awareness among your audience and get people to wishlist your game and get excited about it. Things that you can post at launch day to engage your fans that are showing up to buy your game. And then after release to keep your fans engaged and give them reasons to keep coming back and playing your game. We're going to go through a handful of examples here, but we're also including a larger list of some of the neat example games that we've found along the way as part of this conference. We'll start with one of the most common examples that we see developers using leading up towards release, and that's developer diaries. So this is really your chance as a developer to show players what's going on with your game, how your development is progressing, in some cases the story behind how your game came to be, how your studio came to be, really giving fans a better connection with you as a game developer and helping them care a lot more about what's going on behind the game and see that you're working on it and making progress. Another example that you can do with your game as you're leading up towards release is live streaming your game. So even if you're in an earlier prototype stage or you're getting closer towards release and you want to show a more finished version of your game, live streaming your game for your fans can show them what it's like to play your game, how your game is taking shape, what it's looking like in this current stage. This example here was paired with the Steam Game Festival, which is an entire festival that Steam is hosting now 3 times a year to showcase upcoming games, give fans a chance to play demos, and give developers a chance to live stream their games and show what it's like to actually play those games. And then there's more and more examples of things like this. This is a combination of developer blog showing what's going on behind the scenes, some of the cool concept art that the artists are working on for the game, and how those translates to the models created in the game, kind of what the roadmap is as they're working towards release. And with any of these posts, you can see that there's a variety of different kinds of media that you can embed in them. YouTube videos, screenshots, animated GIFs, and so forth.
One neat thing about this specific post is they were trying to tease the cool parts of the games and get their fans excited. They're building their company brand and they're building loyalty to their franchise.
So then you've done all the hard work building up towards release. You've got a bunch of people excited about your game. You've got a lot of players that have added the game to their wish list. Now it's time to hit the release button. What do you do on release day? Well, now you've got a bunch of people showing up to your store page because they've all got emails from Steam saying that game you wishlisted is now available. So one of the great things that we've seen developers do more and more on launch day is to live stream their game. So this gives those fans that are coming back, maybe they added the game to their wish list 6 months ago and they forgot exactly what the game is like. They come back to the store page and they can see exactly what it's like, and it makes it more compelling and interesting to see why they might be interested in that game. Now you're after release. You want to keep players coming back to your game. You want to give them excuses to keep talking about it and be excited about it. Probably one of the first things you're going to think about is patch notes, patching your game, fixing bugs that your players are reporting, listening to their feedback, addressing those issues. So Steam has a robust set of tools for posting updates, whether it's big major updates or smaller patch notes. This example here is a big variety of different kinds of updates and information that they have about their game, and some of the neat little functionality that's built into Steam to be able to hide or show details. If you have spoilers that you want to tell some fans about, but give your other fans a chance not to be spoiled by it, you can do that as well. We also look at other games that are running regular updates. This one is just, we're showing it as a great example of games using animated GIFs as a way to quickly show what are the new maps that they're adding to the game, what's it like to play those games. So as a fan, you're browsing through this and you can see really quickly at a glance, what is the cool new content? Why am I going to be excited to play this game? Another thing that you can do to keep your audience engaged is a live chat or an AMA. You can schedule it and make it visible ahead of time so players can show up at a particular time and engage with the developer, ask the questions that they're curious about. You as a developer can talk about your progress working on the game, the updates that you're working on, things that you're building towards.
Each of these events is helping to build your development brand and your game brand. Get those followers, build your community. One goal that we hear people talk about is trying to get more wishlists on Steam so that when you eventually do release, a lot more people are clamoring at the gates.
The other thing, when we think about updates and announcements, it's often easy to think about the big AAA live service games. And of course, they run big events and big updates all the time. But what can I do as a smaller game? What can I do that doesn't involve making huge updates to my game? Well, this is one of those examples where these developers have put together a community music challenge. And so they're encouraging their community to create new soundtracks for the game and play their own versions of the soundtracks and submit that. So this event is the winners from that competition. But you can imagine different applications of this, such as art challenges that you're soliciting your community to submit fan art and recognizing the best of that art and showing that off to other fans of the game as well. And then finally, just another example that we thought was pretty neat, there's the ability to run in-game events. And so various kinds of games do this all the time. We also run seasonal events on Steam that sometimes lend themselves particularly well to running in-game events. So Halloween is a common time period for games to run themed content in their game for limited time. So show up on Halloween and you can play and run around with a pumpkin on your head or play in certain modes. Community tournaments are another thing that you can run. Obviously, there's big AAA games that run esports and they have tournaments at the highest level, but you don't have to necessarily take all of that on in order to run a tournament. You can run tournaments in your games and recognize the community members that are doing well in your game, playing it in interesting ways, and so forth. So that was just a handful of the different examples of kinds of events that you can create as a developer to communicate with your audience and keep them engaged and give them excuses to care about your game. We'll share a few more in a longer document that we're sharing as part of this conference as well. Now we're going to go hands-on and a lot deeper into setting up some actual events. This will help us walk through the tools available and explain some of the best practices and tips that we've discovered along the way. So first of all is explaining how to get into your event editor tools. So from your community hub, when you're signed in with your developer account, you'll see a hub admin button up here. So you can click that and you get a kind of a dashboard back here. And this lets you get back to your events and announcements and do some other kind of managerial stuff. What you care about for this purposes is the post announcement, view hidden announcements, these set of buttons here.
One quick call out. Anybody who has development access on the Steamworks partner site to this game will be able to post or view hidden announcements. For people who are not part of the Steamworks group, they can still have access by editing the group's permissions and adding them as officers to this group. So you can have people in your community management team who don't need to worry about the complexity of Steamworks.
So let's click View Hidden Announcements, and this will take you to the dashboard. This shows you any drafts of announcements or events that you have staged, as well as visible events as well. So this is our test environment, so things are a little bit different here. This is not actually episode 1 in the Steam store. This is our test environment. We're using this just as an example. So let's start at the beginning. So we'll click here to create a new event. And you'll notice the first thing you get is a big list of different kinds of categories. Some of these are collapsible and go into more detail within them, and some are individual selections. So it's really important when you're creating your event to pick the right kind of category for the nature of the post that you're making. This helps Steam figure out where and who should be seeing your event. Mostly you as a developer shouldn't have to care exactly about the visibility, but if you do want to know that in the right-hand column here, it lists out the different kinds of sections and visibility for this particular kind of event. All of these decisions have been made based on feedback that we've gotten from players about where they expect and don't expect to see certain kinds of events showing up. So for example, as Adil was talking about earlier with moderation, events that are talking about advertising, we want to make sure that those aren't showing up in the Steam library. So let's get started with one of the smallest and most lightweight kinds of events that you can post, and that's patch notes.
Do you think you can create a patch note? Are you really ready? Oh, great, you said yes. This is super easy. We can create a patch note with just a few clicks. In the category, just choose small updates or patch notes, and we tend to say them interchangeably. The only two things you need to ship a patch note is a title and a description. And often for titles, we see people marking them as the release date of the patch or a version number that the team's using and just increment it each patch. And the description, they tend to be bulleted lists of things that have been updated since the last version of the game. So I just added the event title and the event description. I don't need to touch any other tab. I can go straight to publish, hit publish, and out it goes. My patch note is shipped.
These can be as simple or as complex as you want to make them, but really you just need those two elements in order to post these. So it shouldn't be that hard for you to gather up your patch notes and share them with your players so they understand what's changing in the game. So now let's continue our examples with a much more complicated kind of post. So kind of at the other end of the spectrum from patch notes would be major updates. It's kind of one of the biggest things that you're doing maybe over the year. And so you're going to probably put a lot of work into crafting a rich visual set of updates. We're going to walk through a lot more detail here in the different fields. So obviously there's your event title that for any post is going to be really important. It's useful to make sure you include a bit about what is the exciting things in your update. So you might have branded your update, and if you're thinking about doing a series of posts as you lead up towards the launch of your update, you can be reinforcing the brand and the name that you're establishing for that update. And then you can reinforce that again here. So CSGO recently shipped an update. It's called Broken Fang. So that's the name of their operation. That's the name of their update that they're shipping here. The next field is the subtitle. This is kind of a short follow-on to your title. So if you need to clarify it or add a bit more detail, that is the right place to do that. So these show up in the Steam library where your event is shown in a detail view. And it's shown
in the News Hub.
Also in the Steam News Hub in that big long list of all the events that are showing up. The third field that you find here is the summary or short description. Steam will automatically generate this from the beginning of your written description, but you can also provide your own specific override for that if you want to. So this shows up in a number of other places around Steam, often in the smaller places that your event is shown. You'll see the event title, and then when you hover over it, you see the short description.
One quick call out on all these three sections. We don't support BB code in them, so this is pure text.
So now we move on toward the description And this is really where you can add a bunch of rich fidelity to your post by embedding images, formatting your text. Walking through an example here, you can embed a YouTube video right into this page, and then players can easily see it and view it and watch it within your post. As you're putting together your event, in the upper right-hand corner, you can always hit this preview button, and that immediately flips over and gives you a real-time preview of what your event is going to look like. So as you're creating formatting and crafting your message, you're probably going to be flipping back and forth between that and the editor mode quite a bit, just to make sure you know what your event is looking like, make sure it looks the way that you expect.
A quick call out is you don't need to save your event before you can preview it. So feel free to preview as many times as you need to.
Along with the different formatting options here, it may also be the case that you're already posting your big updates and your news through your own website or through your forums. And so you're doing a bunch of careful crafting of the HTML and the formatting for those posts. We've built this import from HTML tool that will let you grab all of that HTML and automatically convert that to the format that Steam expects it to be. So this can really streamline your process if you're already authoring for another place, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you bring that content to Steam. If you're linking to external images, you want to make sure that wherever you're hosting those external images are not blocked by Steam, and make sure that the URL that you have is the right URL. So if either of those things are occurring, you'll see this nice bright pink warning. That'll let you know that your image is failing to render for whatever reason. So if that's the case, you could figure out how to fix that on your end, or you could just upload that image directly to Steam. You don't have to worry about where that's hosted or whether that works or not. You can have that just work on Steam. So you can easily drag your images into this upload field on Steam in the lower right-hand corner while you're editing your post. You'll see it do a little bit of processing and then upload those images. Then from there, it's really easy for you to drag those images into your post. And then it's all hosted on Steam and it's taken care of, and you don't have to worry about those anymore. So that's the body of your content. That's going to be your videos, your screenshots, your imagery, your animated GIFs, the things that you're updating, really illustrating that to players. Next, we'll move on to the options that you have here. So this lets you control the date of your post. It allows you to schedule it ahead of time if you'd like. So you can use the future date to schedule it so that it can either become visible at a certain date in the future, or you can have it become visible now, even if your update is going to be shipping in the future. So you can let people plan ahead. If you know that you're going to be shipping your update next week, you can go ahead and post your big update announcement now and let people get excited about it and set reminders and know that when it's going to actually be shipping. You can also use this to schedule it ahead of time so that you can prepare all of it, stage it, hit publish, and then it will automatically just show up on the date that you have specified.
So Alden, let's leave this event to be published to start at a certain time in the future, but to be visible slightly before that. And we'll see what that looks like when we publish it.
All right. As you scroll down here, there's a few more options if you want to override the defaults for where this shows up in Steam. So you can opt to turn it off from showing up in a few places, and you can also opt to turn it on if you want, if your post is about an update that impacts the Steam Workshop, for example. If you have modding tools that you're shipping or expanding upon, this is where you can enable that functionality. Next, let's flip over to the Artwork tab. This is the visuals that are going to represent your events as they're listed throughout Steam and when your event is shared through other websites. So there's three main images here that we want to talk about. The first is the cover image. This is the image that's going to represent your event when it's shown in small places around the Steam store, in the News Hub, on your Steam library detail page. It's also going to be the image that's used if fans share your event on social media. So it's important to craft this image to have some messaging in it about your update. What is the title of your update? And think about including your game name. So you can see CSGO has done both of those things here. They have their game name in smaller, and then they have the event name, Broken Fang, clearly visible as well. The second piece of art we're going to talk about is the header image. And this is really adding flavor and excitement to your event itself. So you might have noticed when we were scrolling through some of the examples earlier on that there's a big image displayed across the top of their event. So that's the role that this image does. And once we upload that here, we can quickly flip over to the preview and see what that looks like. So if you're uploading your images at the top of this page, don't forget to scroll down and see the little inline preview to see exactly what it's going to look like when it's rendered in the actual event. So you can see this coming together now with this big, rich imagery at the top of the event.
One quick call out. If you don't provide a header image, Steam will randomly pick from a screenshot that's appropriate for all ages, and we'll show it here. If there is no such screenshot marked in that way, it'll pick one and then blur it entirely.
And then the last of the three images here is the Library Spotlight banner. We looked at this earlier when we were looking through the library detail page. This is really that big banner that shows up at the top of your detail page, your game's detail page in the Steam library. This you really want to craft carefully and make it clear to the player what the exciting thing is that's happening in your event. So when they land on your library detail page, maybe they're going to play your game, maybe they're just looking through the events and announcements that have recently been posted for your game, it makes it clear what this big exciting thing is and why they should click on it and check it out.
So you have to remember to, after uploading your Spotlight image, to enable it. It is not enabled by default.
And while you're there, this is also where you'll find that toggle to turn on the automatic text. So in this case, CSGO has crafted, they've put their name of their event in there, but they could also decide to turn on the text, which then shows their short description and their title here, which maybe gives a little bit more information to players about what the event is. So that's up to you. We encourage you to make sure you check out this preview and play around with that toggle to make sure you have that enabled or disabled, depending on what is right for your post and how you've authored that banner. There's a broadcasting tab here too. You can enable broadcasting for your particular event. That is a whole topic in and of itself. So we'll cover that in some other talk some other day. For now, we'll focus on the remainder of this, which is publishing your event. So when you're all ready and happy with the contents of your event, you've previewed it, you've made sure that everything is as you like. Coming back to the Publish tab, this is where you publish it, launch it, make it live.
One quick note, you can find the final URL that this event will show when it's live on Steam. And you can share that in event or share with the rest of your team. And now let's publish it. I'm going to hit the button, and it's going to take me to this new event page I just created.
This is kind of how it'll show up if you're scheduling an event to start in the future.
But let's say you change your mind. You can always publish the event right now. You can notice that it's hidden. If you click Publish, there's Make Visible Now. Click it, boom, your event is now visible to everybody. And if you return to the dashboard is now in the publicly visible section.
From here, we're going to take a closer look at one key element of different kinds of events that you can create. So a lot of the events, there's not a lot of different settings and options. They all have kind of the same basic set of things. And the exception to that is any kind of time-limited kind of event. So things like in-game challenges or tournaments or things like that that have a definite start and end date that you want to communicate to players. So when we do that and we're creating an in-game event here, you can see that in the editor now we have a start date that we can configure, and it also has an event end date. So when this event is live within the News Hub, within the Steam library, it will show a little green tag that says live so that you know that it's happening now, and it'll show the end date as well. So this will help you be able to schedule and articulate to players something that is maybe coming up in the future and has a start date and has an end date, and it'll help handle all of those cases and display the right things to the customers at the right time. Steam is a global platform, so your customers are probably all over the world buying your game, and they're speaking different languages. So it's also important to think about the languages that you communicate to them as you're posting these announcements and updates. The events tools have a robust set of localization support built into it. So let's take a closer look at that.
So recently, our team shipped an update about Steamworks and a review of 2020. They provided me with some localization that we can use in this example. In my instance, I'm going to use German because someone just sent me the German translations. So notice how the text goes empty because I haven't entered German yet. And I can copy over the translations right into the same spot.
And the way that this works is that players that are viewing your event, if they speak the language that you've entered, they will see that text. If they speak a language that you've not entered text for, it will fall back to showing the English version.
So if we take a quick preview, you can see that if I choose German, this is the text I see. And as Alden mentioned, if I choose a language that we haven't provided translations for, it just falls back to English. The next piece I'm going to show you is that you can export your content into various forms and pass it on to your external teams who may do localization, whether it's CSV or XML. And there's multiple varieties for CSV and one variety for XML. When the localizations are done, they can import the file back in with just a few clicks. And I'm just going to grab it right here. And voila, in this instance, they provided me with simplified Chinese. You can also upload localized artwork. The example I'm going to use is localized cover images. By selecting and choosing a file, it will, by default, choose the language that you've selected at the top. So I'm uploading the English cover art. And as soon as it uploads here. Now, I can also drag and drop the two other pieces of art.
These two pieces of art are named with the language at the end of the file name. So when you drop them into the uploader, they automatically set themselves to upload as the language that you have them named as.
If you look below, you can jump through the different localized cover art. And if you made a mistake, you can always change the language it should have been.
So that's it. We've covered localization, and we've had an in-detailed walkthrough through the event editor and how to set up the events, and some things to watch out for and pay attention to as you're creating your artwork and staging your events, previewing them, creating them as communication for your fans. In total, this should help equip you as a game developer to communicate with your fans and post your events and announcements through Steam right to your fans and your customers as they're interacting with Steam, as they're going to play your game, and as they're browsing for new things to buy and play.
Hello.
Hey, Alden. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
I can. You're a little bit quiet, but it's going to
Get my microphone closer. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for sticking around through that lengthy talk. Looks like there's a ton of great questions. A lot of these questions are pretty broad and not necessarily focused on what we were just talking about. So we're going to try to prioritize the questions that are related to the events and announcement system that we just talked about. Adil, I'm going to set you up for the first question here. The most voted up question from Daniel K. Is there a way of promoting your new game to the players who played your last game somehow, like developer news or something?
No, that's an excellent question. There is some technology working on that'll make this a little bit better. However, I've seen other partners do this. So Dying Light is an amazing game. I love it. They post events to their community, often are improving their game. And at the end of each of the posts, they talk about their upcoming next game, Dying Light 2. And they can certainly link to the store page of Dying Light 2 to quickly collect wish lists and follows. So it's certainly totally fine to post to your existing games as part of some other event. Hey, I'm doing something interesting for my current players, but let them know that something's coming down the line. A way that we kind of frown upon is posting the same event to all your games. That can be annoying to your customers who may have a bunch of games in your title. We are looking toward tech where you could post using your creator home to a bunch of games, but then we use it to dedupe, so only one of that event will surface to your fans. But look for that in the future. We don't have that just yet.
Another great question on a similar topic. Stephen T asked a question. Using the communication tools, what are all the ways that I can feature my game's events or blog posts to Steam users who don't already own my game? Where do those show up?
That's an excellent question. Your major events, your most recent events, always will show up on your store page. Your patch notes, again, will show up there. Both are good ways to tell potential customers and future fans that your game is continuously being updated and new things to check out. The News Hub will show if a user selects on games we recommend to them, will show your posts to games that are similar to your game, both using the tag system and using some more of a machine learning to identify similarities against games that people play. So those are possible ways for games to surface. Alden, you want to talk about visibility rounds related to that? How?
Yeah, I guess, right. Yeah, so there's a set of tools, the update visibility rounds, which are designed for use when you have your biggest updates that you're shipping to your game. And the triggering one of those update visibility rounds makes your announcement show up on the homepage of Steam to both players that own your game and people that have wishlisted your game. So there's a row there that shows your game alongside a couple of others that have recently shipped major updates. So that's another way that you can get in front of at least people that have wishlisted your game and let them know when there's cool stuff happening.
One other thing is if it's the game that you're working on that's launching in the future, you should definitely think of what we used to call the Steam Game Festival, which is now called Steam Next Fest. That's definitely a way to surface your future content via demos to fans who may never have heard of you before, which I'm hoping that's viable for a lot of people who are participating today.
Yeah, that's right. Adil, there's sort of a nuts and bolts question here that Chad Y asked. Can you change the event type afterwards? What are the consequences to doing that?
That's absolutely true. You can change anything about your event after you've published it live. We've seen people create an event that's talking about something up in the future, the thing happened, and they go back and add, here's what happened. That's totally fine. You can certainly change the event type. Anytime you do make a change, we send your event back to moderation. And what that means is it won't show in the library until a moderator's reviewed it. When they have reviewed it, it'll surface back up. Changing your type will change its visibility. So if it was originally a small patch note and you think, oh no, this is really actually a major update, its display and visibility will change. You always have to keep in mind, when you do make a change, it does take a little while for all our servers to refresh our caches. So if you hit the save button, it may take 1 minute to 5 minutes before it's actually updated the content.
There's a ton of questions I'm going through trying to
so many. Thank you.
Yes.
For posting them.
There's a bunch here that are just kind of generally applicable to Steam, and I'm sure interesting for a bunch of game developers. I'm going to answer one of them really quick because I got so many upvotes. Conrad K was just asking, what is the process for getting into the large capsule of the Steam shop? I assume that means like the big banner at the top of the Steam store page on the front page. That is a mix of a variety of different things. So this is really not really about the events and announcement system. It's really more about just game visibility on Steam. So games show up there. They're there because either the player, the game is recommended to the player, either based on tags or based on our other recommendation engines, or it's because the player follows a developer who released that game. They follow a curator that recommends that game. It could be they follow a friend or they have a friend that recommended that game, or it could just be a popular new release and we're trying it out and showing it to a handful of people. So that the games that show up in that top spot on the Steam store can vary quite a bit from player to player. And my front page of Steam can look quite a bit differently from Adil's because we play different games and we have different friends and we follow different developers and publishers on Steam.
I'm going to take a technical question. Conrad C asks, some players are seeing pop-ups of in-game events on Steam, some don't. How does functionality work? Is there some specific percentage based on limitations? Well, Conrad C, unfortunately, the answer is we've started to deprecate this existing tech. We've got a ton of feedback from customers that it's interruptive and annoying to them as they see it pop up. Many forms of our current version, it shows up as a modal dialogue that suffers and stays around even after the event's over. However, we are actually designing and thinking through a new system which will be better integrated with the newest version of the library and with the store. So when events pop up for games that you follow or your wish list, they'll surface more cleanly, but in a non-distracting form factor. And there'll be a place where you can see them all together. However, this is still very early in the design, and we don't have a clear path to when it'll be ready. But the key answer is we took away an annoying feature because we plan to build a better one.
There's another kind of nuts and bolts question. Chad Y was asking about posting, I assume he's meaning posting announcements or news to players that are opted into a beta branch and whether those are filtered to just players of that beta branch. Adil, I believe the answer is that we're working on that, but it doesn't quite work that way yet. Is that right?
I don't think so. If we're talking about playtest, that's a new piece of technology where events are separately kept. So you can post events to your playtest crew and only they'll see it. Branches do not have a separate event stream. So events you post to your game will surface to all users. There's no way to target a specific branch within Steam. It's certainly feedback we'll take back and consider, but as of today, you post to everyone. You have one sort of way to route it away. You can post an event that only appears in your workshop, and that talks to people who enjoy mods and stuff like that. But there's no way to target people in a specific branch. But that's really good question and good feedback.
Yeah, and speaking of which, there's a bunch of questions posed here that are mostly generally feedback, and we definitely appreciate you posting that. We're keeping track of these questions, so this will help us figure out how to prioritize the work that we go back to our desks or we're at our desks. Anyways, the next things that we work on. So feedback is much appreciated, even if we don't get to answer them as particular questions. I'll move on to this. Again, is not necessarily related to the events and announcements, but it was upvoted a lot, so I'll talk about it really quickly. Ryan P asked, can your game suffer from being on the store for too long without attracting much attention? In other words, can your game redeem itself if it didn't immediately get popular when Steam page was created? The short answer is yes, absolutely. Your games can come back, they can ebb, they can flow. I think the thing that you want to keep in mind is what kinds of things can you do both on Steam and off of Steam to stay fresh in the minds of players and give them an excuse to look at your game and care about your game. If there's none of that happening and nothing, your game is not getting updated, there's no news being posted, then there's not a whole lot of reasons that your game is going to be surfaced to players and for players to get excited about playing it now if, say, it was released years ago. The same is true even if you're just putting up a coming soon page. Don't worry about putting it up too early. Put it up when you have a game to show and you want to start grabbing attention and wish listers and followers. Having it up for a really long time doesn't hurt. Our Steam algorithms don't care about how long your store page has been up, especially in coming soon. And it just gives you time to build awareness and build buzz and build excitement among your players and listen to what your players are excited about and iterate on that. And maybe, along the course of development, you can use that player feedback to really emphasize the things that players are excited about playing with your game.
Let's see, what's the next question? Gonna jump down a little bit. There's a question about the Steam Game Fest or Steam Next Fest about what are the next steps. So I'm going to jump ahead because it's administrative for something we're also working on. We will, in short order, send an email to everybody who's opted in to let them know they're in and what the next steps are. So be looking forward to that. Looking forward to it sometime at the end of this week. We're getting close.
There was a question that came in from David B about what types of what events or event types seem to get the most traction for various kinds of games. This is worth talking about, not because there's some secret sauce of do exactly this thing, but it's worth thinking about and how it's worth, I guess, iterating on how you communicate with your audience, because your audience for your game is going to be different than every other game, and both in who your audience is and the things that they care about in your game. So you might have a single player game, and then the things that you post are going to be different, and they're going to matter differently to your players than the kinds of things that Destiny 2 is going to post. So really the best advice, I think, is to just start communicating with your audience, post stuff and see what resonates. And I think both Jenny and Joe talked about that in their talks. It's worth going back and watching those again if you missed them, where they talk about, basically posting stuff, seeing how your fans react, and then doing more of that if that's positive, or doing less of that if that's really fallen flat with your audience. So that's really going to vary from game to game.
There is a question about can you post an update or event for a demo? Right now, no. There's the demo's tied to your base game. It doesn't have its own. Technically, it doesn't have its own content hub, and that's the thing that drives us from underlying technology point of view. So unfortunately, demos don't have their own events that are separate from the base game. However, you can talk about your demo in your base game. You can post what has changed, what to try out, and they will appear on both the demo page if someone doesn't own your game, or in the library, or on the store. There's another technical question from Craig S. about GIFs being pretty large and cumbersome, and we know this. It's definitely on our radar to build a transcode service when you upload a GIF, whether it's on the store or to an event, and then we can turn it into a much better form video for Mac and Windows devices. So that's definitely on our development list. Again, with some of these things, it's hard for us to estimate because there's so many really cool and fun things for us to build to help partners in communicating and just making the store and community much better.
Yeah, we have just a couple of minutes left, so we'll try to get to a few more of the questions. Michael A. asked a question, and I think this is mostly kind of a feature request. He was noticing that when he posted a live stream type event during a game festival, that it pushed some of his big updates off of his store page. So yeah, that I agree that seems like something that we could work on making better to make sure that your big news, big updates and announcements are the things that stay pinned there and relevant for users.
James G asked another question, not about events, but something related. He asked about store page UTM, which is a feature we just launched very recently. Will it be added to sales pages? So if I was listed on sale, it directed people using UTM to sale, would that be tracked and surfaced on all the statistics with UTMs? Not today, but it's definitely on the development path. I've been chatting with our colleagues who built the system. It's definitely something they want to implement in the near, hopefully, fingers crossed, near future.
David A says, can you guys keep making more videos on YouTube? I love this channel. Thanks, David. We'll do our best. I think now is the time that we need to wrap up and throw you guys back to the home screen, where I believe Casey and Eric will have more cool words to say and help us figure out how to move into the next session that is happening here as part of this virtual conference. Thanks, everybody, for being with us, and sorry if we didn't get to your question.
Thank you. See you all later.
See y'all later.